What is up, everybody? It's Animac here for AnimeUproar, and today I will be talking about perhaps the single most interesting question in all of Attack on Titan. Who is the biggest bad guy, the ultimate evil, in the ruthless and merciless world of Attack on Titan? In most anime and manga, the villains are pretty obvious. In Seven Deadly Sins, it's the Demon King. In One Punch Man, it's the Monster Association. In MHA, the villains literally called themselves the League of Villains. And in Black Clover, it's the animation studio. But in Attack on Titan, things are much less clear, and that is also what makes Attack on Titan so interesting. So today, I will delve deep into the question of who will be the final villain and the ultimate evil in Attack on Titan. If you enjoy the Attack on Titan content on this channel and you want to see more, you can leave a like to let me know. And if you're new to AnimeUproar, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at AnimeUproar for all the latest news and updates. And finally, this video will contain manga spoilers. We will be dealing with the very latest developments in the Attack on Titan stories, so please proceed with caution. You have been warned. At the beginning of Attack on Titan, the villains are pretty obvious: the Titans. These giant creatures are literal monsters and their main hobby is eating people, so in terms of bad guys, it doesn't get any more obvious than that. However, things become a lot more complicated as we realize that the protagonist of the story and the guy who swore to kill all the Titans, Eren Yeager, can actually transform into a Titan himself for some unknown reason. The very idea that humans can become Titans changes our perspective. Suddenly, the Titans are not just some strange creatures who exist completely separately from humans. If a human can become a Titan, even though Eren can turn back into a human later, the very nature of the relationship between humans and Titans is brought into question. Of course, we later learn that every single Titan, even the mindless Titans who roam around aimlessly like big dumb sacks of flesh, were once human beings. Every Titan was once a human who was turned into a Titan against their will, and as Titans, these humans have virtually no control over their actions. They suddenly become mindless beasts who devour human flesh, even though this is something they never would have done as humans. This complicates the whole villain situation even further. Yes, the Titans as they are right now are a menace and an existential threat to humans. Unless the humans kill these Titans, they will most likely be killed themselves. And killing the Titans in self-defense is something the humans behind the walls are forced to do. At the same time, killing a Titan is the same as killing the innocent human who had been turned into that specific Titan against their own will. So even if you kill them out of self-defense because you have to, you can't exactly be happy about it. And what's more, we can't exactly consider these regular Titans to be the ultimate evil in Attack on Titan, because as humans they were not evil. They did not choose to be turned into Titans, and once they were turned into Titans, they became mindless monsters simply following their natural urge to consume humans. A mindless Titan attacking a human is no more evil than a hungry wolf attacking a chicken coop. At the same time that we are learning more about the Titans and how they came to exist in the first place, we also learn that there are some extremely evil humans behind the walls. Although these humans are not mindless beasts, and although they enjoy all the benefits of human intelligence, reason, and emotion, these humans choose to do terrible things to other humans. Look no further than the corrupt government behind the walls and the First Interior Squad, who have no problem brutally torturing and killing people who ask too many questions or criticize the king and his government. In many ways, we can argue that these humans like Kenny and the people who killed Armin's parents, Erwin's father, and Pastor Nick, are bigger monsters than the mindless Titans. The Titans are just following their natural urges and instincts, like a wild animal, but the humans have the ability to think rationally. They have a choice, and they still choose to harm their own fellow human beings. Behind the walls, we have all types of humans living together and facing the threat of the Titans together. We have innocent and good people. We have people like Eren and Levi who are emotionally scarred and traumatized but are trying to do the right thing. We have people like Armin who dream of a more peaceful world. And we have people who only want power and control, like members of the ruling regime. This is very similar to our own world, where we also have people of all varieties living and surviving together, minus the threat of the Titans. But then we have the Titan shifters. Eren is not the only human who can become a Titan and then turn back. In fact, we eventually learned that Annie, Reiner, and Bertolt are also humans who can become Titans. And we learned that they were the ones who broke through Wall Maria and willingly brought all the Titans in, resulting in the deaths of thousands of people. Based just on this, it is easy to hate Annie, Reiner, and Bertolt and to see them as true monsters. And it's true that the three of them did something that cannot and should not be forgiven. But the more that we learn about them, the more their status as monstrous villains collapses before our eyes. Through their interaction with the other recruits and with each other, we see that Annie, Reiner, and Bertolt are very human. They have doubts, misgivings, regrets, and a guilty conscience about what they did. We quickly get the hint that the three of them are not necessarily doing what they chose to do, but rather they appear to be doing something that has been thrust upon them by someone else. As the story progresses, we meet the Beast Titan, another Titan shifter, and eventually we'll learn the truth about Annie, Bertolt, Reiner, and where they really come from. The three of them come from beyond the walls, and they grew up in a country that discriminated against them and treated them like inferior and dangerous people for no other reason than the fact that they were born as Eldians. They spent their childhood being indoctrinated by Marley propaganda, which tried to convince them that all Eldians are inherently evil and that the only way for them to atone for the sins of their kind is to help Marley destroy the Eldians on the island. They entered the Marleyan warrior program, which was designed in order to recruit Eldians who would be willing to fight for Marley as Titan shifters. Because only Eldians could become Titans, Marley had to rely on Eldians to compete with each other in order to determine who should inherit one of the Titan shifter powers. The reward for Eldians who passed the warrior program and succeeded in inheriting one of the Titan shifter powers was honorary Marleyan citizenship for themselves and their families, which meant that their families could finally stop living in horrible conditions and could actually afford food, medicine, and other basic necessities. When Annie, Bertolt, and Reiner came to the island of Paradise, they truly believed that they were not going to be hurting people, but rather evil devils who are a threat to the entire world. Well, it's likely that Annie didn't feel this way and that she saw through Marleyan propaganda, but Reiner definitely fell for these lies at first. It is only after the three shifters infiltrated the walls and came to realize that the people behind the walls were just normal people like everyone else that Reiner, Annie, and Bertolt could be said to have had a choice. At this point, they could have abandoned their mission because they realized that they were being asked to kill innocent people, or they could have continued. Abandoning the mission would have likely caused problems for their families back in Marley, but I believe that abandoning the mission after realizing what the people behind the walls were really like would have been the right thing to do. Continuing to follow Marley's orders after realizing that the Eldians were not devils, just normal people like everyone else, was a choice, and I believe that it was the wrong choice. Annie, Reiner, and Bertolt can be legitimately criticized for continuing on with the mission even after spending years in the 104th Training Corps and befriending so many Eldians on the island. But the fact that the three of them did have regrets, and in some cases these regrets led to the development of serious and lasting mental problems, proves that Reiner, Annie, and Bertolt are not just evil monsters. They are not ruthless villains in spite of their immoral actions. They are human beings who found themselves in a difficult and tragic situation and who made some bad choices, in my opinion. And that brings us to the real evil behind the entire mission to infiltrate the walls, the Marleyans. In many ways, the Marleyans, and especially their government and military, are the closest thing that we have to an outright villain in Attack on Titan. The way that the Marleyans treat the Eldians is inexcusable, and the way that they expect innocent Eldians to continuously pay for the supposed sins of their ancient ancestors is ludicrous. We are not sure how much of the history that Marley claims is true is fact and how much is fiction, but regardless of what happened in the past, the way that Marleyans treat the Eldians is inhumane and unjustifiable. There are some Marleyans like General Theo Magath who are more tolerant towards Eldians. But on the whole, we have seen everyone from members of the military and security forces to ordinary janitors on the streets abusing Eldians, including Eldian children. Not only that, but despite hating the Eldians, the Marleyans are still not above using Eldians and their ability to transform into Titans as a weapon against rival nations. In fact, Marley has used both the Titan shifter powers and the power of the mindless Titans to become a great military power and to subjugate other nations to its rule. So to put it simply, f*** Marley. Seriously. But as much as I hate the government, military, and security forces of Marley for being opportunistic, militaristic supremacists, we have to acknowledge that even Marley has innocent civilians, including children. So even if war against them is just, we have to remember that every war will result in civilian casualties. Also, I would love to say that Marleyans are so obviously the bad guys that it's unrealistic for them to ever exist in the real world. But sadly, all we need to do is look back to World War II and we will see that a regime as insane and evil as Marley is not just fiction. Aside from the government of Marley being clear villains, in my opinion, recent chapters of the manga have forced us to repeatedly reevaluate the role of Eren and his half-brother Zeke in the Attack on Titan story. Eren started out as the protagonist and Zeke started out as a villain. However, in recent chapters, Eren and Zeke have teamed up, and their goal is supposedly to carry out Zeke's master plan, although I'm not sure that Eren will ultimately go along with Zeke's insane plan. But let's talk about Eren first. After realizing the truth about the outside world, Eren had a choice. He could stay on Paradise and wait for Marleyans to keep attacking the island until eventually Marley's modern technology and remaining Titan powers destroyed every Eldian on the island. Or he could do something to strike back against the enemy and defend the island. Eren decided on the latter. He infiltrated Marley by pretending to be a wounded veteran, and he established contact with his half-brother Zeke, who was also plotting against Marley. Together they launched an attack on Liberio, captured the Warhammer Titan power, and with the help of Armin's Colossal Titan, they destroyed a large chunk of Marley's army. However, in the process of capturing the Warhammer Titan, a lot of innocent people, including Eldians, were killed in Liberio. These casualties were a direct result of Eren's decision not to sit back and to take the war to the enemy. So this is a burden that he now must bear on his shoulders. On top of that, after consuming the Warhammer Titan, Eren's personality changed. With 3 Titan powers inside of him, Eren's mind is filled with the memories of hundreds of previous Titan shifters, and he has recently begun to appear mentally unstable. And if that wasn't enough, as he has gotten closer to Zeke, Eren has deliberately distanced himself from his closest friends, including Mikasa and Armin. Eren insulted Mikasa by insinuating that she only defends him because her Ackerman genes are biologically programmed to do it. And when Armin protested against Eren's behavior, Eren physically assaulted Armin. All of this has raised questions about whether Eren has come full circle and become the embodiment of the famous saying from The Dark Knight: you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And once we learned what Zeke's ultimate plan actually is, if Eren really supports it, then it isn't hard to make the argument that Eren has become the villain. Now let's look at Zeke. As we know, Zeke had a very tough childhood because his father intended to use him as nothing more than a tool to help the Eldian restorationists destroy Marley. And at a very young age, Zeke was forced to betray his own parents to the authorities in order to save his own life and the lives of his grandparents. After that, Zeke appeared to be a loyal Marleyan warrior, serving them as the Beast Titan Shifter, but it turns out later that Zeke's ultimate plan was to betray Marley in order to get his hands on the founding Titan power. But the reason that Zeke wants the founding Titan power is not to save his own people, the Eldians, but rather to euthanize them. Back when he was still training to become the Beast Titan, Zeke learned from his mentor Tom Xaver that whoever possessed the founding Titan power could change not only the memories of all Eldians, but also their biological makeup. By this point, Zeke had decided that the life of an Eldian was nothing but suffering, and that their ability to turn into Titans would always make them pariahs among the other nations of the world. For this reason, Zeke decided that the best thing for the Eldians is to simply go extinct. He decided to use the founding Titan power to make all Eldians sterile, so that this generation of Eldians would become the very last generation. But because Zeke has royal blood, if he tried to take the founder for himself, he would be overtaken by the 145th King's pacifist ideology. So he decided that he must work together with Eren instead, because Eren possesses the founding Titan power without having royal blood. Now, even though I can relate to the struggle and hardships that Zeke had to go through as a child, both at the hands of his parents and at the hands of the Marleyan regime, I cannot support his plan. As I said before, the Eldians who are alive today did not choose to be born with the power to turn into Titans, and they are not responsible for the alleged sins of their ancestors. Zeke's idea that all Eldians deserve to simply die off is no better than the oppressive and discriminatory beliefs that the Marleyans have about Eldians. And this type of self-hatred that Zeke is exhibiting is a good example of internalized racism. Zeke has witnessed the Eldians being mistreated and discriminated against all his life, and in his mind he has come to accept that there is something wrong with the Eldians. In reality, there is something wrong with those individuals who choose to abuse and discriminate against innocent people. The fault does not lie with the people who are being abused. So, is Zeke a villain? Yes, if this is really his plan, then I would call him a villain, albeit a villain who is a traumatized and tortured soul. We can all understand how Zeke's traumatic life has led him to do the things he has done, but just because we can understand that his life was difficult doesn't mean that we should support the genocidal plan that he wants to implement on his own people. Zeke might have turned against Marley, but his plan is in line with the wishes of the most viciously anti-Eldian Marleyans. It is ironic that throughout his childhood, Zeke suffered discrimination at the hands of the Marleyans, including being forced to wear a special armband when in public so that everyone would know that he was Eldian. These armbands are part of the reason why Zeke faced abuse and discrimination on a daily basis from aggressive Marleyans. For instance, in chapter 114, we see an instance when a young Zeke and his parents were out on a rooftop of a building overlooking Liberio just talking and enjoying the view. And then a Marleyan janitor sees their armbands. He instantly attacks them, throwing water all over them and insulting them. He demands to know how these descendants of the devil would dare to reproduce and have more children. The janitor believed that the Eldians were inherently evil, the spawn of the devil, and that they shouldn't be allowed to even have children. This was a deeply traumatizing experience for Zeke, and yet as an adult he is essentially carrying out the wishes of that Marleyan janitor. To make the irony complete, after Zeke tainted some wine with his spinal fluid so that key members of the Survey Corps on Paradise would turn into titans as soon as he screamed, those Eldians who consumed the wine were required to wear black armbands to differentiate them from those who didn't drink the wine. How sad and ironic that after living through the cruel treatment that the Eldians faced in Marley, including being forced to wear armbands to prove that they are different from everyone else, Zeke decided to pursue a plan that the very Marleyans who abused him and his family would have wholeheartedly supported. And because of Zeke, other Eldians were forced to wear armbands in order to be differentiated from their fellow human beings. So yes, Zeke is a villain, but he is a villain who was created by the traumatizing and abusive circumstances of his life. The fact that he is the Beast Titan and the fact that he has a plan that I would consider villainous suggests that Zeke is the real monster in Attack on Titan, although he is a monster of Marleyan and Grisha's making. The thing that differentiates human from wild beasts and from the mindless titans is their ability to choose the right path in life. But Zeke wants to take that choice away from his own people by forcing them never to reproduce again. And this is so similar to the Marleyans taking away so many basic human choices and freedoms from the Eldians. The real question is, what will Eren do now? Personally, I agree with Armin. I think Eren is pretending to go along with Zeke because he needs his help, especially since Zeke has royal blood which allows Eren to harness the power of the founding Titan. But ultimately, I believe that Eren will reject Zeke's euthanasia plan, and I believe that he will do his best to find a solution that will allow the Eldians to coexist with the other nations. Ironically, the real monsters in Attack on Titan are not the giant man-eating titans. The real monsters and villains are humans, like the Marleyan military and government or members of the 1st Interior Squad who are willing to torture and kill innocent people. A good illustration of this fact is the character development of Gabi, who is an Eldian that was completely brainwashed by Marleyan propaganda and someone who genuinely believed that the Eldians on Paradise were all devils and that everything would be fine in the world if not for them. Gabi has infuriated so many fans by her behavior and actions towards her own people, all because of Marley's insidious and vile propaganda. However, in chapter 118, even Gabi finally comes to the realization that there were never any devils on the island of Paradise, only humans, just like in Marley, and just like everywhere else in the world. But that doesn't mean that there aren't any villains on the island. It just means that the true villains are not monsters or devils, they are humans. This is the case on Paradise, in Marley, and everywhere else, including our own world. The real monster in Attack on Titan is the human monster. The monsters are those individuals who haven't been turned into mindless titans, those who can still use their ability to think rationally, to think critically, and to empathize with fellow human beings, but they choose not to. This is the key point. The real monsters are those who have a choice but still choose to do the evil, immoral thing. The mindless titans don't have a real choice. They are driven by natural urges and nothing more. Sergeant Major Gross and other Marleyans like him do have a choice. Zeke does have a choice. Eren will have a choice, and I honestly hope that he makes the right one. Our choices is what distinguishes us from wild beasts, and making the conscious choice to do a terrible thing is what makes you a terrible person. Making the conscious choice to act like a monster is what makes you a monster, and our own human history tells us that far too often humans have made that very choice. But let me know what you guys think. Who will be the final villain in Attack on Titan, and what choice do you think that Eren will make in the end? Will he side with Zeke, or will he ultimately choose to side with Armin and Mikasa? Let me know down in the comments, I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed the Attack on Titan content on this channel and you want to see more, you can leave a like to let me know. And if you're new to AnimeUproar, please don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. A huge thank you to all of our AnimeUproar patrons for supporting our work. I want to give a special thank you to our Pro Hero tier patrons, including the one and only Gilgamesh, Chubbs is the man, and Nothing But a Fan. And another huge thank you to our The One tier patrons, the ones who stand above all other clans, including Baby Ray, Ace, Ingrata, Alolan Adam, Maddie Mac, and Michael Calderon. If you guys feel that our content provides value for you and you want to support more, be sure to check out our Patreon link in the description. Even donating a single dollar will give you access to our AnimeUproar patron exclusive Discord, and your name will appear in our videos along with these amazing people. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, I really appreciate it. And until next time, see ya, Space Cowboys.